UFO sighted off Okinawa. From the Japan Times, September 24th, 1972. UPI Hong Kong, dated September 23rd, 1972, carried the following news, and a few Japanese newspapers reported it in the corners of their foreign news pages. Crewmen of a trans-world airline flight Friday, September 22nd, 1972, sighted an unidentified flying object traveling at outer space speed southeast of Okinawa Prefecture, a TWA spokesman said Saturday. The spokesman said Captain D. Shiflett and two crew members of TWA 745 flying from Okinawa to Bangkok saw the object appearing as a brilliant bluish-white ball at 11 a.m. when they were cruising 10,000 meters over the Western Pacific about 560 kilometers southeast of Okinawa. Captain Shiflett reported the unidentified object was traveling in a south-southeasterly direction at outer space speed, the spokesman said. The object was best described as appearing to be a space object, as its passage was too fast for a comet, though the main body was similar to that of a comet, he said. The spokesman said the object, which was several times brighter than the magnitude of the brightest planet, was approximately visible for 1 minute and was also seen by Flight 985 of KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. UFO photographed over Okinawa. From the Japan Times, September 27th, 1972. Around the time when TWA pilot and two crew members sighted an unidentified flying object over Western Pacific off Okinawa at around 8 p.m. Japanese time, 11 a.m. Greenwich time, on September 22, 1972, two photographs were allegedly taken by a correspondence course senior high school student in Okinawa. Two of the 5 biggest Japanese newspapers, the Yomiuri Shimbun and the Mainichi Shimbun, reported on September 27, 1972. The student who took the photos is Mr. Masahiro Asanuma, 21, 4th grade correspondence course student of Prefectural Koraku Senior High School, living at 91-2 Yorimiya, Naha City, Okinawa, and they were taken when he was attending the summer schooling camp of that correspondence course, held at Prefectural Young Boys Field Center at Uji, Nago City, in the central part of Okinawa Island, together with about 40 schoolmates who also witnessed the object. At around 8:30 p.m., according to the Mainichi, a bright object, brighter than the moon, moved from left, west, to right, east, in the northwestern sky. The object made its debut in the night sky about 50 degrees high in the form of yellowish-white belt of light. An airplane is burning. No, it's a flying saucer, the students cried. Having heard such cries, he pointed his camera, Canon 50mm standard film SS, to the object and released the shutter 4 times. The first 2 shots were failures, but when he left open the iris and pressed the shutter for 5 to 6 seconds, an identified object was caught on the film. The object finally disappeared into the cloud about 2 minutes later. There were scores of other witnesses of the same or the similar object at about the same time in various parts of Okinawa, such as Dairojima, Koza City, Kunigami-mura, Ogimi-mura, and Naha City, etc. One of the witnesses, a salaryman in Nago City, describes the object as trailing the tail as a star, meteor, but it was less bright and proceeded with the slow speed as when the airplane is going to land, and definitely not the comet. The shape of the object shown in the picture is very singular, and we cannot interpret it in any way. We will show it herewith by line, but we suppose not until we can actually see it on the actual photos. We will not be able to get the actual image. Or, we are afraid even then we may be unable to understand what it is. From the shape of the image on the photo, it may not be the actual image of the object, but the picture of the trail of the object by its glowing passage in the night sky. In this connection, there was one picture which was also taken in Okinawa which shows the similar image. See the sketch below. In fact, There are some more which were taken in other parts of Japan, Fukushima-ken and Morioka City, which are also in the same category. We must check these and consider their nature. At the moment, we are trying to acquire the actual photos, and after inspection of them, we will report you further. We have some members in Okinawa, and we are trying to contact them to get the further information. But as to the question whether this is the same object which was observed by the pilot and crew members of TWA flight and also of KLM flight, we cannot give you the definite answer because the speed was different. Furthermore, we have already received one newspaper clipping from one member in Okinawa, a clipping from the Okinawa Times, which reported some other sightings of the same object on the same night by some other residents in various parts of Okinawa. But those sightings show that the object had flew approximately from north to south, trailing a wide tail, not from west to east, as described by the senior high school student reported above. What does this mean? Was there a misunderstanding of the direction on the part of the student? There was another photograph taken on the early morning of the next day, September 23rd, in Osaka City. This was reported on the Nippon Keizai Shinbun, September 28th, and we have met the man who took it, and who is an owner of a camera shop, and/will report on this matter later on. A UAO photographed over Osaka, from the Japan Times, October 5th, 1972. As to the UFO photo taken on the early morning of September 23, 1972 in Osaka City, the Nippon Keizai Shinbun, September 28, 1972, reported as follows. On September 27th, a topic in the streets because this news was reported in two of the main national newspapers in Japan on this morning. A photographer living in Osaka visited us and submitted a photo saying that a strange object showed up in his photo too. His name is Tatsuro Okazaki, 41, living and having a small camera shop in Takayama Building 12122, Suigincho, Higashiku, Osaka, the name of his shop being Mikuni Photo. I have visited him on September 29th and heard how it was taken. He wanted to take a photo showing the successive positions of the moon in the night sky during the whole night for the enlightenment of his 9-year-old son, Shinichi, third-year grade primary school boy, but in order to do so, it was necessary to take 4 frames. He fixed his camera, Fujica 701 with 28mm wide-angle lens, on the top of his building and made successive exposures since around 10 o'clock in the night of September 22nd to around 5 o'clock in the morning of September 23rd. He selected the night of full moon, the night of harvest moon. Exposures were made by opening the cap in front of the lens by hand approximately once every 30 minutes, for 1 to 3 seconds each, depending upon the brightness of the moon at the time, with iris 5.6, shutter left open. Sometimes he made 2 or 3 successive exposures at a time, so that 2 or 3 images of the moon were caught closely positioned with each other. In the photo in question, 6 images of the moon are shown diagonally in the left down corner of the picture, representing 3 groups of exposures. 2 exposures at the first time, 1 exposure only at the second time, and 3 exposures at the third time, about 30 minutes apart with each other. When 4 photos were pasted up in the adequate arrangement in the fan-like position, the resulted one big frame showed the movement of the moon in the night of harvest moon clearly as shown in the sketch. When I visited him, he showed me such resulted fine picture pasted in his album proudly. He said that in order to catch the lower scenery too in the picture, he took the frames vertically. In the resulted picture, he identified and marked all outstanding buildings by name and jotted the exact time of exposure beside each image of the moon, making this a very excellent educational material. Not only is it an excellent education material, but it is also a superb fruit of his big efforts. In the right top corner of the picture, an enigmatic trail of something is caught by the lens. The size of the image in the picture sketched over leaf is somewhat exaggerated in order to show the general appearance of the picture. It is described in the newspaper as the tail of light just as drawn by a fine brush with a starry point. In fact, there is a second faint knot in the tail lower one, and a faint side arm to the right, and two fainter arms are also discernible. As the picture was taken in the way as described in the above, it is highly probable that the image was caught in one of the exposures, or at least in one group of exposures, as the intervals between the groups of exposures are too wide to enable the picture to catch the movement of one object. Furthermore, as the duration of the exposure is so small, I feel it is very difficult to assume that the movement of one object was caught in this way. I think it may be the trace of something's movement, but I cannot say what it was. As to the nature of this strange image, the newspaper comments. At first it was hinted it was the planet Venus, but as the planet Venus could not be in the western sky in the morning, the speculation was cast away at once. Mr. Fumio Toda of Astronomy Department of Osaka Municipal Electrical Science Museum denies the possibility of its being a star, saying it is too low to be Capera. As it was just after some sightings of a strange flying object in Okinawa, people said that it too may have been a flying saucer, but all the specialists were against that idea. Professor Shigeji Fujinami of Kyoto College of Arts and Textile, who is an expert on the astronomical photography, says it may have been a trail of a meteor or the phenomena of aerial electric discharge. But if it was not, then it may have been a mischief of the camera. I do not think it was the mischief of the lens, and prefer the former hypothesis, i.e., that of a trail of a meteor. But can the meteor progress in such a complicated way? Oh, I forgot one important factor: wind. If a meteor took a curved course in the sky and then the wind disfigured the trail, it's the point to check, I suppose. UFO photos in Okinawa, what they tell. From the Modern Space Flight Association UFO newsletter, October 8, 1972. Upon our urgent request, Mr. Masahiro Asanuma, who took the photos, supplied us the copies of photos promptly in two sizes, in cabinet size 17.6 centimeters by 11.7 centimeters, and service size 10.4 centimeters by 6.9 centimeters. Although newspapers reproduced only one photo in their pages, there were two photos successfully taken on that night, as the newspaper accounts recounted. The enigmatic images on each photo are as roughly sketched herewith. The rough impression of photo 1 is that some electroplasmatic substance, or we may assimilate it to the toothpaste squeezed out of the tube, zigzagged forward in an upward arc. In the second photo, the progressing something became somewhat fainter and arced up almost vertically in the reverse way, as shown in the sketch. In the cursory inspection of the two images, it appears that the object arced up in the first photo and then arced up further in the second photo. But it appears not easy to reconcile the two progress curves. In the minuter inspection, however, it becomes apparent that we must make the different interpretation of the images. We must take note and must not neglect the faint something which is trailing sideways to the left horizontally, all along the progress curve. What is this, and why does this trail sideways? Upon further inspection, we find a very unexpected and surprising fact. It is apparent even in the smaller sized photo, photo number 2. It is not so clear in photo number 1, that the enigmatic image is solely composed of a multitude of equal-sized pentagons overlapping with each other, as roughly sketched in the diagram A. This is for image 2, but if you look at the photo number 1, you will find that the image on it is also composed of a multitude of pentagons. What does this mean? It is this way. The lens is out of focus on the light source, and the image is blurred. Not only it is blurred, but by blurring, it is showing the shape of the iris of the camera. I do not know how the shape of the iris shows up when the light source, pinpoint light source I mean, blurs. but such phenomena do happen frequently, are they not? Now about the zigzag way of the object's progress, we can infer that it is not the image of the real progress, but due to the slight trembling of the hands which got hold of the camera. If you watch the black images at the right side, but also at the underside of the photos, which represent the branches of a kind of pine tree called mokumau, which is very common in Okinawa, you can realize clearly that the camera moved during the release of the shutter. So, the curve of the image does not represent the real progress of the object. There is a good possibility that the object did not curve in its progress, not at all, and the object may have progressed only straight forward. We must check about this point by inquiring back to the witnesses of the same object at the same time at the Young Boys Field Center in Hainji, Nago City, how the object progressed when they observed it. This assumption of mine appears to be vouchsafed by the existence of paralleled horizontal trails mentioned above. If you look back to the news accounts concerning the taking of these photos, you will find that the light progressed straight forward. And now, if we assume that this light source had been trailing a faint tail all the while, if the camera moved and the lens focus was wrong, then don't you think that such images as shown in these two photos resulted even if the object progressed straight forward, showing the tail at all places of the progress curves, denser and longer where the image of the object dense, which means that the hands taking the camera was stable at that point for some time, and thinner, fainter, and shorter where the image is fainter or cannot be discerned at all. If this interpretation of mine is correct, then, may I say it or must I not, the intrinsic value of this set of UFO photos diminish, because the highly enigmatic and intriguing appearance of the images on these photos do not due the actual nature of movement of the object, but due to the trembling of the hands and wrong focus. But even if so, I suppose that the value of those photos is big, as I could understand the real nature of this kind of strange images of some UFO photos already mentioned in our September 27, 1972 issue. In fact, I could not understand those photos up until now, because no one has ever hinted at such interpretation of these photos in the UFO literature here. And I haven't the opportunity of inspecting such photos closely. Further data on UFO activity around Okinawa from the Modern Spaceflight Association /UFO newsletter, October 11, 1972. We have received a few clippings from other leading newspapers in Okinawa, Ryukyu Shinpo, one of which reports the sighting and photographing of the unidentified flying object over Okinawa on the night of September 2, 1972, from the mouth of the student who took the photos. We report this as the supplement of a report in our newsletter September 27, 1972. On the evening in question, Mr. Masahiro Asanuma, 21, 4th grade Oroku Senior High School correspondence course student who took the photos, and his about 40 classmates with their teacher, Mr. Yoshio Takesu, were admiring the full moon, as it was the day of harvest moon. The Japanese enjoys the full moon once a year on this day, one of the outstanding events in the life of Japanese people in general. The object flew from the western coast of Hanaji to the direction of the Kunigami to the east slowly for about 2 minutes and disappeared. Although the moonlight was very bright and the sky was rather light, the object was fluorescent colored, like the moonlight, according to Mr. Asanuma. His camera was a Canon 35mm OL with a 50mm lens, Iris 1.9, using Fujifilm Monochrome SS. He took the first 2 photos with flash, but they were failures, and so he set the shutter at B and took the next 2 photos with the iris open and releasing the shutter for about 5 to 6 seconds each. These 2 were the photos which caused the sensation. He speaks of the sighting as follows. When I was enjoying the moon with my classmates and teacher, suddenly I saw a fluorescent-colored light. At first I thought that the exploded U.S. air transport was falling down from the sky burning, but it was strange that no actual body was seen and no explosion was heard. It was as bright as the harvest moon. As the light progressed straight forward, my classmates made a fuss, crying, "What is that?" And about 200 people around us also saw it. As we are enjoying the TV program Invader currently, it was an interesting experience. I am very glad that I could catch pictures of the strange, enigmatic light in the sky. As to the other sightings of the similar object on the same night at about the same time at various other places around Okinawa, we have already commented in our September 27th issue that there is a strange difference between the one photographed by Mr. Asanuma and the one sighted at other places in that flight direction was from east to west in the former case, whereas it was from north to south in the latter cases. How should we explain this? Although it is easy to assume that both are the sightings of different objects, it appears not reasonable to assume so, because the objects sighted at the north and south parts of Okinawa, around the central part where the object was sighted and photographed by Mr. Asanuma and others, flew from north to south, whereas the one sighted and photographed in the central part only flew from west to east. So, we must check this point carefully. For so doing, we will enumerate herewith other sightings in Okinawa at approximately the same time reported in both of Okinawa's two leading newspapers, Okinawa Times and the Ryukyu Shinpo, already mentioned. September 25th, Nago City, near to Hanaji, where the photos were taken in the central part of Okinawa. Okinawa Times reports, when K, 16, was looking up at the starry sky in his garden in the northern part of Nago City between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m. on that night, he found a red object fly southward from Kunigami District trailing a long tail and notified his mother, who also confirmed it. At Yagaji District 2, the same object was witnessed by an adult at about the same time. In the City Street District 2, 6th grade primary school boy asserted soberly that he too had sighted the similar object. Another witness, Mr. C, a 49-year-old merchant in the suburbs of Nago City, testified with a mystified face that when he was delivering beers to the bars in the city streets, he saw a similar object fly from Misaki Omiya no Mori to the direction of Kushi. Chinesong, in the south part of Okinawa. Okinawa Times, September 27th. 13 salarymen from Naha City who were enjoying the moon in Chinesong on that night also saw the same object. Shioya Ohashi, in Ogimisong, his address is 101 Agenda, Koza City, and he is employed at the Tai-Hai Nursery School at around 8 o'clock on September 2nd with his 3 colleagues on their way to the camp. They saw the same object. Just after passing the place, they saw a firework-like object fly from north to south, shining brightly, trailing a long tail. Getting out of their car, they have observed it for 2 to 3 minutes, at the end of which the object disappeared into the clouds. When Mr. Yasuo Kinjo, 22, living in the suburbs of Nago City, and 2 other men had just passed in front of the Hintona Senior High School at Yohana, in the suburbs of the Ogimisong on their way to the net hauling festival in the beaches of Okuma, in the suburbs of Kunigasemon. They found out an unidentified object from the sky over Okuma Beach to the direction of the mountain in Kijoka. It was trailing a tail just like a comet in the headlights. It was flying with a slow speed, just as when an airplane is landing. It had no noise, and it was clear that it was not an airplane. It was too slow to be a comet, and the glow was too dull, too. It gave me an impression that it was flying rather slowly. As I had my camera, I prepared to take a photo, but it was too late. We could observe it for about 2 minutes. We have forgotten to mention in the above that at the end of the various sightings around Nago City, the Okinawa Times, September 25th, added, in summing up the narratives of the witnesses of the object was sighted for about 30 seconds, flying from north to south, trailing a reddish-white tail. As you may have observed, although, this newspaper reported the duration of the sightings as about 30 seconds. The other newspaper and Mr. Asanuma stated the duration of the sightings as about 2 minutes. Which is correct? That is the vital question. Another sighting of UFOs on September 25th, 1972. It may be appropriate here to report another sighting on the day 3 days later, similarly in Okinawa. At about 8 p.m. on September 25, 1972, Miss Mariko Ire, 20, living at Shuri Tsuyoshiko, Naga City, saw with her younger brother the similar object, on which she said, "It was a strange one because it preceded and also receded." Opinions divide between Big Fireball and Flying Saucer. Theories between the two main newspapers in Okinawa, and the opinion differs as to the real nature of the object. The Ryukyu Shinpo, to which the photographs were originally submitted by the student, took the side of Flying Saucer, and the opposing newspaper, the Okinawa Times, which has never put the photo on its page, take the side of Big Meteor or Fireball, or Ball Lightning, quoting the opinion of Mr. Sadao Murayama, head of the Physical Research Department of National Science Museum in Tokyo. UFO sighted in Akita. From the Mainichi Daily News, October 19, 1975. Some 50 people reported spotting an unidentified flying object Friday morning about 900 to 1,500 meters above Mount Omori in the southern part of the city. The UFO, which according to the observers was a golden color, was seen from the Akita airport for about 5 minutes from about 10:44 a.m. The observers included air controllers and passengers waiting for their flights. Everyone became excited when they spotted a golden saucer-like flying object, said Masaki Machida, reporter of the Akita ABC Broadcasting Corporation, who was at the airport. But it dropped out of sight about 5 minutes later. The Akita airport officials said there was no aircraft flying over Akita City at the time the UFO was spotted. A UFO landed in Kofu City? From the Daily News, February 25, 1975. On the 24th, a sensation started in Yamashiro Elementary School in Kofu, the schoolmaster, Nobuyoshi Kaneko, when a UFO allegedly landed and a spaceman tapped a pupil on the shoulder. This pupil drew a picture of the alleged spaceman and explained what had happened, and his teachers were shocked very much. Soon, the school authorities made an inspection of the place with tape measures and other tools. The pupils who saw the UFO were Masato Kawano, 7 years old, and Katsuhiro Yamahata, 7 years old, in the second grade of the school. They say that first they found two flying objects glittering in orange color and crackling overhead at 7 p.m. on the 23rd, when they were roller skating near the Hinode housing estate in Kamimachi, Kofu City. The bigger one flew away toward Mount Atago, but the other went down between the props of the vineyard behind the estate and landed on the earth. They approached over toward the object, which was about 5 meters in diameter and 2.5 meters high. Very scared, they were about to return home when the side hatch of the saucer opened up and an occupant came out of it. He was about 1.3 meters tall, with no visible eyes nor mouth, but with 3 fangs, and his body glowing in silver color. They saw another smaller humanoid in the saucer. The bigger humanoid walked away about a meter from the saucer with a long object, somewhat like a rifle, over his left shoulder, and put a hand on Yamahata's shoulder. The boy was too scared to walk, so his friend carried him up on his back and ran away about 30 meters to his house. They reported the event to their mothers, went back there with them, and found the glowing light again from a distance. The mothers say that the orange light kept glowing on and off for about 5 minutes in the vineyard, and then flew away while they turned their eyes away from it. The boys say the saucer had 4 illegible big letters on the hull of it. Meanwhile, Ichiro Mangishi, who is also in the second grade of the school, 8 years old, reported that he saw a shining object flying toward the Hinode housing estate 30 minutes before the boys found the UFO. At that time, he was going by in a car with his parents and their friends on the Kofi bypass through Matsudacho, Kofu City, very near the estate. It seemed that when the two concrete props were found almost fallen down the next morning in the vineyard where the UFO had landed, the neighbors were very alarmed again by the fact. It was very fine that particular evening around the Kofu district. The authorities of the Civil Aviation Bureau of Transportation Ministry say that an airliner often flies over Kofu between 6 and 7 p.m., and that, especially, the lights of YS-11 propeller planes, which flies at an altitude of 1,000 meters, will be visible to the naked eye. When these two boys drew a picture of the humanoids and the saucer and put it up on the wall, all the pupils made a fuss about it. Hey all my fellow weirdos. Thanks for watching this episode. I hope you liked it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep up with everything I post. If you want to watch more videos like this one, you can click on the top right corner pop-up for a full playlist. You can also send me your very own alien or UFO sightings, paranormal stories, and any other creepy stories in the comments, or post on my subreddit r/ihaveaspookystory. Or you can send them to my story submission email, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Until next time, good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.